Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. OpenAI is putting a full court press on developers. All of a sudden, they're important. Can our AI ambitions match reality? What about AI piloting drones? This is like the AI of the AI. All of this and more, you're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel here for Techstrong. Happy Thursday to you. We've got an amazing bunch of stories we want to cover today on Techstrong Gang, and we've got an amazing gang of folks here to talk about them. Let me introduce you to them right away. First of all, I haven't had a chance to talk with him in weeks. It's good to see him. I'm assuming he's home in North Carolina, looking from the background there. He is he's our AI expert. He's a lot more than that, though, too. He's my friend, Mark Hinkle. Hey, Mark, how are you, man?
I'm great. Good to see you, Alan.
How's everything going with the intelligent enterprise?
Good. We have some exciting things we're going to announce in the next couple of weeks.
Cool. Excellent. Speaking of AI experts, joining us from Austin, and I'm going to do my best here. It's Ann. That wasn't too hard. Ahola. A-L-H-O-A.
Ahola.
Ahola.
Yeah.
Ahola Ward.
Hello.
God darn it. Hey, Ann. Welcome back. I guess you liked it last time you came back.
I guess I did. Here I am, my third time back.
All right. Well, that makes you now third time. You're no longer a rookie. You're an official gang member, man. You get colors.
Oh, did I get a jacket? Is there like a mug or something I get?
There might be a T-shirt in that for you.
Nice.
We'll let you know. Speaking of gang members, he is our man on the scene. He's the czar of Silicon Valley, John Swartz. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Alan. It's good to see you all. Happy to be here
Good
again.
to have you back. We missed you. I've been doing these. I haven't seen you in a couple of days. Yeah, I know. Well, you were busy doing some stuff.
Yeah, it's the news cycle is crazy. Just ask Mike. I mean, every day we're swatting flies, trying to keep ahead of this stuff. It's incredible.
Yeah. All right, so let's speak to the Grand Fly Swatter himself up in Harrison, New York. He's our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard, just killing time till the Yankees play. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good. I noticed that there's baseball on in the afternoon now. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to get any work done around here with these baseball games on in the afternoon, though. But yes, and you know what? Go Tigers. Nope.
Yes.
Only until they play the Yankees. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Let's jump into things. Our first block today is OpenAI is courting developers. And it's about time, maybe. But John, this is one of your stories. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it was a full court press, as you said. They're courting developers. OpenAI introduced some new tools to make it easier for developers to access advanced voice feature. The tools let any application incorporate human-like AI assistants that can make phone calls and use natural language to navigate complicated software. It was the second developer day for OpenAI. OpenAI didn't go as bells and whistles as they did last year. They're kind of a little bit more muted. But the interesting thing is that this is a continuation of their business evolution from the nonprofit side to a traditional startup. So they're trying to raise funds, to recruit talent, pump up revenue. And this is happening with a backdrop that's kind of interesting. As they make this transition, naturally people are going to leave. And so we've seen a rash of departures, including one that was announced yesterday. Yet another co-founder, Dirk Kingma, said he's going to Anthropic. So
really?
What happened? Yes. So he's gone. The CTO just left. I guess what we're seeing is developers like this news, but I think there's a worry within OpenAI, and actually the Wall Street Journal did a story about open dissent within the ranks. They claim is, quote, the breakneck growth of OpenAI is tearing the company apart. OpenAI denies this. But again, this is something that we're going to see more of. And the OpenAI story is this. They're going to roll out more technology. It's going to be more advanced. They're going to be working more with developers. That's the good side. The flip side is that as a consequence, when you go through this transition, you're going to see a number of people leave over safety concerns or concerns with how things are going there. So we're going to have a parallel story here. We're going to have more advancement in technology and then more rancor over whether this is the OpenAI people remember from a year ago or whether it's a whole new company that Sam Altman is pushing into the future.
I couldn't agree more. I think a great week for developers, bad week for executives at OpenAI. But I think what they really signaled with the announcements of, the fine-tuning, real-time API, the prompt caching, those sorts of features, is that they're trying to cater more to their developer ecosystem rather than competing directly in the end-user app space like they have before. So I think it's sort of a bit of a shift, but one that I think shows that they're growing up. I mean, this is a sign of maturation, toning down the theatrics and focusing on the actual ways to help for adoption, how to be more efficient, those sorts of bells and whistles. I think developers are going to latch onto.
There's some real, I just interject this really fast. There's some real money happening here. So OpenAI, according to multiple reports, including Reuters, expects sales to more than double to 11.6 billion in 2025. They're about 3.7 billion this year. The company is also in the midst of raising $6.5 billion that would give it a valuation of $150 billion. So it's all systems go, and they have to compete with other larger companies. They got to move forward fast, and there is going to be collateral damage, so to speak. But I'm sure they're going to fill the gaps with people who have more experience on the kind of the startup side and growing a company. This happens in Silicon Valley all the time. It's like a snake shedding skin, right? A company reaches a certain threshold, and then they bring in a new level, a group of people to run it, to take it to the next level, and then from there, you see what happens. So natural evolution.
You're absolutely correct. I see this all the time. I work exclusively with startups, and usually the founding team is the one that gets the product out. They get it done, but if it stays the founding team, that actually will hold a company back because anyone new coming in doesn't get into that inner circle. So they actually have to leave in order to help themselves grow. That's exactly how it should go.
Mark, what do you think is going on here, Mark? Because I'm old enough to remember 40 years ago, there was a small little company in Washington that made this kind of deal with a very large dominant player called IBM and wound up taking over the industry. And as I watch OpenAI in its relationship with Microsoft, it seems like more and more they're competing with Microsoft. I mean, they have a licensing agreement with Microsoft, but now they've got SDKs, and heck, they're even talking about maybe building hardware devices someday. I mean, is this going to be a replay of a show that we saw 40 years ago?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. A couple things here. First, they're raising rumored $150 billion on revenue of, let's just say $2 billion. And so Apple was supposed to be part of that round. The rumor is that they dropped out. And to your point, Mike, I think they probably will be competitive, and it may cause problems for Apple down the road. So that's one reason that I think that's happening. Now, I have a slightly different take on why the executives are leaving. So, these guys have been killing themselves for years. They're vested in their stock. OpenAI has a huge demand for their stock on the secondary market right now, and they're allowed to sell. So as someone who's been in their shoes, they put in their 4 years, they're 100% vested. If they want to take the money off the table, if they go IPO, are they really going to IPO at $500 billion? And if so, they're going to have to kill themselves to do it when they could walk away, let a new cast come in, go to Anthropic, start something else, start doubling down, and they could take all their money or part of their money from OpenAI off the table and not have to, if they're going to work that hard, they might have more upside at an Anthropic or a new start. On the developer side, the thing that I think, and I think they've always been developer friendly, but now there's more venues. So I think the vision fine tuning is really good, interesting for people to. Right now, DALL-E has just been part of ChatGPT, and to Anne's point, it's been more consumer. Now it's going more mainstream. The one that I think is really interesting is the prompt caching. So this is the serverless play for AI. So if we remember the cloud play, what was happening is you had people that were paying for 100% of the capacity for a VM, and then serverless was usage based. So they were able to charge twice as much per minute for serverless and not spend as much energy in the back of the call center. I'm guessing that with this cache token, and what they're talking about is prompts. So not the prompts you and I put in ChatGPT, but when somebody has a service, they have the same prompt, like do research on a company or do this kind of analysis. They can cache it, take 50% of, and they can keep the amount of data going through the large language model. They can double or triple their margins, reduce the customer spend, and everybody's happy. So that's the part that I think from a business side, the prompt caching thing to me is pretty interesting. That is the model distillation, which is another play at, it's a more efficient play on using AI. So.
A couple of thoughts on all of this. All the companies that I have ever founded, co-founded, or helped were funded by my friend Brad Feld. He used to be at SoftBank Venture, Mobius, Foundry Group, Techstars. Brad's mentor was a guy named Len Fassler, and that's who I sold my very first company to, Brad and Len Fassler. And to what your point was about startup teams, that's what Len was the quintessential New York investor. He had taken about 3 or 4 different companies public, all in roll-ups, including the one that I eventually sold my company to and helped build. And he used to say, look, well, he said a word I'm not going to use here, but he would say any guy can get lucky and catch lightning in a bottle and build a company that does 3.5 million, 5 million. He said, but it takes someone a little smarter to build a company that does 12 to 25 million. But over 25 million, you need a different team. It's a different animal to take a company to 50 million, 75 million. That's a whole different animal. You've got to have systems in place. You got to start scaling. It's not that 2-3 startup guys. To go public, 100 million in revenue and above, well, that's a very different animal altogether, right? And that you've got to bring in people been there, done that. I think that's what we're saying with OpenAI. But the thing about OpenAI, this is like a baby Huey, an 800-pound baby. This isn't a company that's going to go, we're looking at $75 or $100 million, and they might have a unicorn status of $1 billion to $4 billion. No, there's a company that's coming out of the chute at $150 billion valuation, perhaps, that's looking, as John said, at it, what was it, John? 10 billion in revenue is what they're looking to grow to?
Yeah, about 11 point.
11 billion.
So, yeah.
So this is like trying to weigh a whale on a scale that I catch porgies on or something, But it's the scale of this is all out of whack, right? And this is going to, like throwing a giant boulder into a pond. The waves of disruption are going to vibrate through. That's the word I'm looking for. Throughout the tech
They're going
sector.
to ripple. Yeah. The one optic to me, and I understand what Mark is saying, what he just said, but the thing about this team, which is a little bit, I don't want to say alarming, but disconcerting at times, is that people are coming and going seemingly every other week, every week.
Yes.
And Sam Altman, who I kind of know, I don't know him that well, but drama follows.
John, come on, you're the czar out there. Sam must come by regularly,
at the beginning, I ran into him in a coffee shop and we were talking about what he was working on. And drama follows him at times. And
yes, it does.
That's maybe a reflection of part of his personality. And remember, he wasn't their CEO for a while. He was booted. Then he was brought back on. That played out seemingly as a soap opera for weeks. So there's a little bit of like this kind of wild card factor with this company that I think heightens a little bit of anxiety. And I wonder also if the people there were just tired, mentally exhausted, dealing with drama.
It burns you out,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's kind of like if you're a basketball fan, Pat Riley. Pat Riley was an amazing coach. Coached the Lakers, the Knicks, the Miami Heat. But he would burn out. He'd burn his players out. You can only be on that knife's edge for so long until you're burnt out.
It's another guy. This is a throw out to Mike, is Billy Martin, right? Teams would play extremely well for him for a couple of years, and they just got tired of him.
And then you'd get tired of that Billy Martin kind of Billy the Kid thing. You're 100% right. And but also, I will tell you, sometimes what may look like chaos from the outside is actually a pretty tight thing going on. People were pushed out. I question, hey man, how did a founder leave, a high exec leave from OpenAI and go right to Anthropic, right?
There are a couple who have. It's not just one guy. It's several people have done this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the non-competes were in effect, right?
Non-competes aren't recognized in California.
I believe there was a recent federal court law that said they are now.
Oh, really? I don't know that San Francisco knows that.
Well, San Francisco may not, but because there was law that said non-competes were not going to be enforceable, and then I think a federal court overturned that. And the last I looked, federal courts still rule over state, and so, especially if you got a non-compete, one company's not based in California, and most of those California companies are not California corporations. They're Nevada or Delaware corporations. And so that would, not have effect there. But in any event, look, that's for the legal beagles to bark over. Concentrating as Mark did on the actual, releases and feature sets. Yeah, it's exciting times. I think they're still, executing. It'll be interesting to see. I heard the same thing Apple pulled out of this round. It'll be interesting to see the money they raise and how much of it is Microsoft money. Does Microsoft just kind of sit on the sidelines and put in their pro rata? Did they increase their stake? Did they decrease their stake?
What's their stake right now? Is it 13? I've lost track. Is it the 13?
Well, it's a crazy stake because it was done before they were a profit company. So they invested money, but it's tied into the profitability and revenue, and then they get paid back that money. So at some point, if OpenAI were to make a lot of money, Microsoft's stake gets extinguished, basically. They get bought out. But I don't know if that's changed through all the machinations that we've seen here.
I think the one thing that is for certain is that whoever carries the day with developers will win the war. We've seen this movie in the past, and it always comes back to the developers, and I think everybody's starting to figure that out.
Can we put the Balmer from Microsoft developers Monkey Boy dance on for our outro today?
Wow.
I will ask the powers that be here, Mark.
With AI, we can do anything.
This is also true. All right, let's take a break on that note here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about AI ambitions versus AI reality. Is there such a thing as AI reality? You're watching Techstrong Gang.
In a world where every line of code powers the future, every keystroke can introduce new threats. As software evolves, so must security. It's time to rethink how we protect our digital world. Join the leaders in DevSecOps and AI at the OpenText DevSecOps Virtual Summit on September 24th. Discover how innovation is transforming software delivery faster, more secure, and smarter. From AI-driven security to the truth behind cloud security, get the insights that will keep you ahead of the curve. Don't just watch the future unfold. Be part of it. Register now and secure your place in tomorrow's world.
All right, folks, we're back, and there's yet another one of these studies out here talking about how folks are using AI, and it kind of confirms what we've talked about before in multiple shows. People are struggling. There's data management issues, infrastructure issues. It doesn't quite happen on a dime. But what was interesting about this particular study that Riverbed put out is more than half the organizations, I think it was 57% thereabout, have created what feels like a tiger team specifically for driving these AI projects. And the issue seems to be that all these different silos within our enterprise IT organizations are too cumbersome to make all this stuff happen. And I wonder, though, are these standard operating procedures where we create tiger teams when we have new technologies? Or do you think something fundamentally different is about to happen in the way IT organizations are structured in the age of AI, and maybe all these silos will start to come down and the tiger teams will become the dominant teams?
I love the term tiger team, by the way. I'm a cat lady. So I do think that it's all or nothing. What I see in my experience is that either an organization is super hungry and they can't wait to get AI into everything, or they resist it. So I think as we see IT teams and we understand the IT group does what they do, I think we're going to see that, but for AI. I think dedicated AI teams are something that is going to become commonplace as this technology becomes more pervasive. I think there are benefits to that. Automation, there are a lot of repetitive tasks in AI, in IT, not AI, but like data center operations. So automating power management, operating cooling, security, all these sort of tasks will become the IT person's friend. So I think that there's a lot of potential there. I think it's just a sort of a mental shift that we have to make on the consumer side, maybe generational, but I think inside of organizations that are not AI from the outset, it's taking a minute. I will say on my own team, there's a little bit of resistance to certain AI tools because they see it as a little bit of a threat to their jobs, when really it's making their jobs easier. So using tools like Grammarly to quickly edit their text. So we use it for copy editing. We do not use it to create text. So I think that as people can get over the hurdle of just sort of judgment, then they're going to get into adoption. And I think it's going to have great results for organizations and they'll operate more efficiently, but we're not there yet.
Mark, from your perch over there at the Intelligent Enterprise, which some folks might call an oxymoron in itself, are you seeing some fundamental changes in the way enterprises, IT organizations are thinking about this stuff?
Yeah. So first off, and this is a pattern I'm seeing, I think the tiger teams are made up of tigers in the cloud space and traditional IT, but they're really pussycats in the AI space. Like, there is such...
Do you have anyone in particular in mind on that, Mark?
I cannot confirm.
Don't name names. Don't name names.
Yeah, but there are a couple of public companies where they've trained their own models with folks who are very smart, capable systems management cloud people. But I think where they're falling down is you can't just read Hacker News and become a data scientist. So a lot of times I think their perceived lack of data is their perceived is their lack of experience training these models. And I've seen some really bad performance from some of these models. And I was like, well, what'd you train it on? I think the data was fine. I think it was the just lack of, I couldn't do it. I mean, we're calling me an AI expert, but I'm more of a AI analyst than an expert on implementation. I think that's where people are falling down. The other thing is definitely, you know, people are scared, as Ann mentioned, of these things being a existential threat to their jobs. So I also feel like there's a lot of slow rolling going on, because what happens when you start solving problems in the enterprise eventually gets to your job. So to put yourself out of a job, it's sort of like when Novell networking was a big thing, is everybody wanted to get their certified Novell networking engineer and administrator credentials. And then we went to Microsoft and Cisco networking credentials. Those folks didn't want to upgrade because it was an existential threat to their jobs. So I looked at this thing. The thing I thought was funny was, or just not funny, haha, but interesting, was 52% of the respondents said that they're ahead of the competition. Well, that means that, you know, 48%, the number does it. Everybody thinks they're a little bit ahead. I think that the measure is, are they driving stuff inside their company? Are they seeing a real ROI, or are they just accruing technical debt, reducing their actual efficiency while they're trying to implement these new projects, and then blaming it on a lack of data? So that's
I think never mind the machines, it's the people who answered the survey are hallucinating.
So I have some thoughts on this. I have a few thoughts on this. First of all, so I do agree with a lot of the survey findings here, but I have my own reasons for why they are what they are. I think number one is these tiger teams are an extension or part of this movement to Chief AI Officer, CAIO, right? And these CAIOs, the CEO and the board are calling them and saying, hey, I got a top secret mission here for you, very, very important to the future of the company. I need you to get us to adopt AI because we've got to be AI. We've got to be in this AI thing. We got to be AI. Do me a favor. Don't go over to those IT people. They're only going to slow you down. Those IT people, the developers, they're crazy. You got to make AI work. Then we'll tell the IT people about it. And by the way, those security people, they're even worse. They're the people who say, no, don't tell them a damn thing about what you're doing. You just keep going as fast as you can. Use AI, use AI, use AI. Get yourself a tiger team and use AI. But it's a hush. It's like a skunkworks project that doesn't get buy-in from the rest of the organization. And so they're almost doomed to fail. In the rest of the organization, there's a stigma being developed about using AI. Hey, that's a great piece of marketing you did here. You wrote this? Of course I wrote it. What are you trying to say? I used AI to write it? Because if you used AI to write it, somehow you're less smart than I am. Right? And it's the same thing with developers. Right? It's good lines of code. You developed 50 lines of code yesterday. And I used AI. You know, I had this come, my son is in the legal tech lab at law school. He said, Dad, I couldn't answer the phone when you called. I was going over with my lab professor. We had some problems with the code I was working on. I said, Landon, why didn't you just put the code into AI and ask it to debug it for you and see what it said? He said, Dad, this is a very special language. I don't think AI could handle that. So what language was that? You know, and it wasn't a special language. It wasn't PHP or Python. I said, no, I think they can handle it, Landon. This is, we are creating a stigma that somehow relying on AI makes you less than, or puts your job at risk, or something else. And so the reality is, I bet you there's a lot of people who didn't answer truthfully in this survey because they're afraid to say, I'm using AI. I'm not. I use it all the time. Everything I write these days, I put through there, or I start with that and write from it. I think you're a fool not to. But, you know, so these are the two kind of things I see going on. You got that chief AIO officer and his tiger team that are on a skunkworks mission that no one's allowed to know about. And then you have this stigma of everyone else shouldn't really use AI.
Yeah. I think the thing that you just said, and lots of good stuff, but the thing that I see more often, lots of people come to me and they're like, yeah, we want a chief AI officer. And I think you nailed it. That will be a failure. They're like, will you be a fractional CIO, CAIO? And I'm like, no. I said, I'll work with your team, because if you don't get the buy-in, if you don't know what's really coming on, all you're going to do is cause division. You're not going to get access to what's really going on in the company, and it'll fall down. Like, you can put a genius into any industry, but if they can't get context for that industry, they're going to fail. So I think you did something else. Also, you're right about the security guys. They all wear loud shirts and spend a lot of time fishing, and they're trouble. So stay away from them.
So I don't know anyone like that.
So what's the
Hey, Alan, nice shirt.
Thank you.
Wow. I was waiting for that one, Mike. Hey, so what's the saying? Is the saying tigers eat their young, right? So we have so many conflicting sentiments and goals within these organizations. And the one that always drives me crazy is the CAIO, who is, what's the difference between that person, the CTO or the CDO or the CISO, whatever the hell it is. And study after study show these companies almost in this like paralysis. You know, they're weighing the costs, the benefits, the issues of compliance, governance, coping with the energy requirements. It's just maddening. And yet there's, as always, there's some pressure from the top that squeezes the middle class within the companies. And the study hits right on the money about that.
Look, the CEOs are under pressure. The board is saying, you got to use AI to make the picture better, reduce headcount, more profitability, do more with less. AI. And so, these CAIOs are on a mission from God to make that happen. But don't tell anyone.
We're under pressure from clients to create content faster using AI, writing social posts using AI, writing content blogs using AI. And here's the thing, I've tested it. Human written content still performs better. Because people can tell. And so it doesn't perform.
People can tell. Can Google tell? Is the question. But here's the other thing. Tell your client, hey, client tells you, I need 5 blogs. Ann goes into AI, bangs out 5 blogs in 2 hours and 3 hours, gives it back to the, and the client says, oh, God, Ann, thanks. These are 5 great blogs. No problem. I used AI for them. Oh, you did? Well, I'm not paying you that kind of money for it. Then you just went into AI.
So I will tell you, recently we had a launch for a client and they kind of hit us on a Saturday saying, hey, we need 2 blogs. So I took 2 content pages on their site and recapped them. We ended up not using the post, but I have a very firm ethical rule on this. If AI is involved, I have to disclose. I want them to know because I want them to know that this wasn't something I wrote. Also, we have a team of writers, and when we get content from them, we check it.
Right.
And we have detected AI being used.
Of course you have. But does that disqualify it or cheapen it?
It does if they're charging a top rate.
So
because I do expect to pay less if you're not writing it yourself.
There's the stigma.
Exactly.
There's the stigma.
It's based on time. We're paying based on time. And if you're not spending the time,
I'm going to tell you, here's a joke. I'm going to tell you something. But there's a serious part to this. Poor lady up in the Northeast, her heat's not working. She calls a plumber to come look at the boiler. Plumber comes down, he looks at the boiler. He says, I can fix this. The lady says, oh, please do. I'm shivering. It's so cold. Look, the plumber takes a pipe wrench and he bangs a pipe. And boom, all of a sudden you start hearing steam coming up through the radiators and the house is warming up. The lady says, thank God you fixed my heat. I'm not going to freeze. How much do I owe you? Man says, $250. And the old lady says, $250? You looked at the thing for 5 minutes. You banged it with a pipe. $250? He said, no, I looked at it for you for free. It was $250 knowing where to bang the pipe.
Yeah.
What tool I use is up to me. If you value what I gave you, pay me the money. Don't question the value of my tools.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen in the AI game too.
Yeah. And honestly, Alan, I think that's a great point. Like if fish, and I do a lot of the same kind of work as Ann does. And originally, we were talking about, is it AI generated or not? I'm like, assume I'm using AI in part of my workflow, no matter what. So you're paying for a result. You're not paying for my time. And, that is, I feel like, and I know like intuitively, they're like, you might have taken 5 minutes. I'm like, but I knew where to hit the boiler. And that's if it's poorly written or if it's not meeting their expectations, that's the only criteria and what they're willing to pay. So I think that's going to be a talk that goes back and forth for a lot of times because we're used to living in a paying for time.
An hourly, right. And a time, how much time I put into something is what it's worth.
For me, just in my business, I would rather pay for a result. I don't care how you did it because I've paid for a lot of time from contractors and been disappointed and employees over the years. And if I pay for a result, I pay for a result. Good content, good work product, whatever it is, video, images. I don't care how it's done as long as it's done that way. I mean, I do disclose though. I think Ann's right. You got to say, hey, and do you just close that to your client or do you want that in the end consumer? So
to the end user.
If it becomes a blog post, do you want it in the blog post that's I read online or just your client knows?
It was co-authored by Ann and Robbie Robot.
Yeah.
I think you can tell. I think humans can still tell it's not that good. But fun fact, I actually found out this week my Mercedes needs more repairs than it's worth. So I started researching a new car, and guess what I used?
AI.
AI. It saved me a lot of time on reading reviews, on finding the model of new car I want, and I got to say, it was really handy.
No, and look, and this is the path we're going down, right? First of all, today you might be able to tell. I will tell you it's harder to tell that AI stuff was written by AI now than it was a year or two ago. And it's only going to continue to blur those lines. So that's a momentary way station we're at right now there. I think it's a fundamental shift of saying the value of something is based upon how long it takes to make it versus what is it worth to you. And
well, the other thing that
we
needs to
should
be
discuss
factored into this conversation is, we will be able to work on more projects in this narrow time window. So
more with less. All right. Speaking of more with less, it's time for a quick break here on Techstrong TV. This was a great conversation, guys. I love this one. But we're going to come back and we've got what to me is just, it seems natural enough. AI piloting drones. I think we might hear this on the front lines of a war any moment now, but you're watching Techstrong, gang. Stay with us.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right, folks, we're back and we're talking about, as promised, AI is flying drones. We've all seen those images in the past where there's somebody sitting behind a joystick flying these various drones around. But now, especially in the construction industry, there's an article on Digital CXO about this, where they're using drones to fly around construction sites and measure things and see how progress is going. And the pilot is an AI system. In fact, in Florida, we've heard reports where insurance companies are using these drones to check out everybody's roof and send them a bill because the storm just came through and they discovered that there's yet another hole in their roof, and suddenly the premiums are going up. These drones are everywhere these days. Mark, I mean, is this the new thing where every industry that you can think of is going to make use of these AI piloted drones?
I think AI piloted machines in general is really, really interesting. And I really like this use case because the context, so inspecting the building, it's not hard. It doesn't require a lot of reasoning, and it really makes it safer for a lot of things. I mean, imagine doing those inspections in the past. You had to put a person up there on a roof somewhere where they could fall. And
so what's one less insurance adjuster?
Yeah,
I'm only kidding.
But no, I think it's a great use case. We see with the self-driving cars, even though they're in the news right now with the Waymo cars, the technology works and it's safe. This is an unmanned drones doing all sorts of tasks. I think it's probably going to start seeping into everywhere. I live in North Carolina. We just got hit by Hurricane Helene, and we saw people using drones to really do a lot of stuff. Now, they weren't AI powered drones as far as I know, but I mean, I think all of them are, to like the DJI and other mainstream drones have AI in them, and they can be programmed with GPS, but it's not sophisticated. But it's probably one of the places in the industry of artificial intelligence where the technology is good enough to solve big problems and get a real ROI. So, kudos to that. I love the article about Eagle View and how they're using it in construction, because in college I walked steel for about 3 days before I went crying and started doing stuff where I would be on solid ground all day. So it's a good use case.
I have a similar story about walking steel and scaffolds in New York City. I'll tell you about it one day, Mark. Too long for this format. But I think I agree with you. It just makes sense. You already have a drone, which by definition is a drone, right? We don't have anyone on board that's being remotely controlled. Why wouldn't you use AI to do it? But I'm going to tell you another thing about it. An AI piloted drone has no conscience. An AI piloted drone cannot be bribed. An AI piloted drone, right, is not going to look the other way or have prejudice or bias, right? And you ask me, why are you saying these things, Alan? You're nuts. Well, I'm not, because here in Florida, when the adjuster used to come look at your roof, it was, I'm not saying I ever did this, but you slipped them 50 or 100 and you got a really nice write-up that your house was stormproof. He was just a adjuster hired. He wasn't even a full-time employee. They would hire adjusters. They'd bring them in from out of state to just blanket an area. Or what color was the person who owned the house? Or was it a single mom? Or was it this or that? All of these things, this bias built in. The building industry is a great example. Building departments and building inspectors. How many times do we hear them getting bought off? But I'll give you an even worse case. Military drones. I've read several articles that the rate of post-traumatic stress disorder for drone pilots who have had to pilot drones into combat zones and kill people remotely was even higher than pilots who actually did bombing missions or, were inside the plane doing it. The idea of being into a deprivation chamber, just focusing in, bringing your drone in, putting the X over the spot and dropping your bomb and watching people blow up. It's a hard thing to do. And they may or may not want to do it, or maybe they miss on purpose, or, there's a people cost involved there. as I said, AI drones have no conscience. So if we're looking to have Star Wars Attack of the Clones or whatever, right? A clone army doing our bidding for us, that's probably better than having humans doing it, right? I wonder how long we'll see this in the Middle East or in Ukraine very soon.
It's like a safe, practical use with construction, but you think from that point onward, just the revolutionary types of things in terms of covering news, say like a war zone, or even covering a sporting event where you get these shots, these incredible shots that you've never seen before, of stadiums or angles. It's limitless. Retail use. I mean, it kind of boggles the mind what can be done, within reason. But also, I think first and foremost, as you said, Alan, is just this whole idea about safety around the human being experience.
Yeah.
Well, right. Think about it. Hurricanes and tropical storms, wildfires, flooding, monitoring crops, agriculture.
Yes. Sorry, Ann. Years ago, I covered Katrina. So I worked at USA Today a long time ago, and another reporter went to cover Katrina. And one of the frustrations was getting around. There was flooding everywhere. And I remember going in with a couple of brothers whose house was underwater. And we were driving through all these different side streets. We never really had a perspective of where we were going. We were hearing all sorts of things, the 19th Ward in particular. And it would have been fascinating to see something up close, examining what was going on versus the faraway shot or the secondhand accounts. It would have been fascinating. It would have also been helpful in terms of the people who are suffering and in terms of the rescue workers.
Sure. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. I mean, this is really, we're talking about great use cases for AI. This fantastic.
I have a question. How much of the airspace above my house do I actually own?
How much do you want to own?
Well,
I'll sell it to you.
It's an interesting question because if the drone gets too close, in Florida, I can stand my ground, right?
Wait a second, guys. This is Florida. You don't think there are people standing outside with guns shooting at the drone? So the insurance companies already?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on. It's Florida men and women here. Are you there? Yeah. Let's not go there. But I mean. Truthfully, you didn't have a problem with Google taking pictures of your house for Google Maps, did you?
I have a problem with the fact that it doesn't change very often, right? They drive around once a year, maybe every other year.
That's a funny story. My wife's sister, God bless her. The first time I showed her Google Maps, and I said, "Here, this is our house. I'll zoom in." She went outside to wave. I was like, no. She's not watching this. She'll never know. But I was like, oh God, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Should we leave it right there? No, we're not going to leave it right there. We have another block I want to introduce for today. Every once in a while we're blessed. We get these standalones. Sometimes it's Bob Resselman, giving us his kind of tech curmudgeon. And then other times we've got my friend Ira Winkler from the security space, and Ira's are called Bite Me. And if you know Ira, that's just perfect for him. Anyway, Ira has a rant, and he's always ranting. But his rant this week is on, we're approaching cybersecurity conference season. And it could be for any tech conference, but cybersecurity in particular. And Ira wants to know, how come vendors, they treat booth attendees unequally? And it's not just, it's a man or a woman. It's like at a security show, they come over and say, what's your title? Oh, I'm a security administrator. Okay, yeah, go help yourself to some collateral over there, some one-sheeters. What's your title? Oh, I'm a CISO. Oh, come this way. I've got champagne and grapes for you, right? Because everybody's in hunt for the CISOs. And so Ira says every vendor at the booth should be treated like a VIP, but too many are just out whale hunting. Ahab's looking for Moby Dick. Here's Ira Winkler on Bite Me.
Hi, this is Ira Winkler for today's edition of Bite Me. Right now, I'm shooting this video in, mid-September? And it's just the beginning of conference season in the cybersecurity world. This means there's going to be a lot of expos. It means there's going to be a lot of smaller events, a lot of larger events, and things like that. And, I look forward to this because this is a time for me to get together with friends. However, what I don't look forward to, and people need to understand this, are the vendors that are out there that are going to treat people like second-class citizens as we go through this season. Because we're going to have a lot of people, mostly mid to senior level people. But when you're out there at the expos and, in this time of year, not as bad as Black Hat or RSA, but we have InfoSec World that's coming up in a week from now. We have ISC Squared Security Congress, which is going to have a pretty large expo. And this is the time where vendors show who they actually are. This is the time where vendors are either going to treat you like crap or they're going to treat you with respect. And in all honesty, I've been in positions where vendors would, if I would have said, give me a trip around the world, they would have given me a trip around the world just because of the positions I was in the past. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not in those positions. One of my friends, David Stender, who's currently CISO of a bank, he used to be CISO of the IRS, very large organization. And in that organization, when he was in that position, vendors would do whatever they could to get in front of him, offer whatever they can. Then what happened was when he left the position, left being a CISO for a period of time, I was joking with him because I stay friends with people. He's like, yeah, now I'm a PIP, previously important person, who can't get an invite to a dinner at McDonald's. And you know what? He's now back, and the people who couldn't give him an invite to McDonald's are now regretting that decision. The reality is that anybody you meet as a vendor, you should treat with respect. The vendor should treat anybody going by. What's that reason? Specifically, you don't know where they're going to be in a year. You don't know where they're going to be in 2 years. And even when I was at large organizations, let me promise you, as, again, I was senior in the Walmart cybersecurity program, and people would want to talk to me about their product. That was a complete waste of time 99% of the time. And why was that? Because I don't make the decisions. We trust our workers. We trust those low-level people you ignore because they do an outstanding job on a day-to-day basis. If they have a need, they determine there is the need, and they determine the solution to the need, and they boil that need up. And that happens in any organization of size. Yes, you guys want to go whale hunting. And it makes you seem good. It makes your report say, I spoke to the CISO of this world-renowned bank. Good for you. They're not going to buy your product in general. They're going to go ahead at best, even if they love your product, and send it back down to those bottom people you ignored. You wouldn't give a piece of chocolate to. And those people you wouldn't give a piece of chocolate to are going to be the people who determine whether or not there's a need for your product, whether or not they can integrate it, whether or not they're willing to do the work to get that product into production. So if you really want to go ahead, model Bill and Ted. Just be excellent to each other. Be excellent to everyone. Because the reality of the situation is those people you're ignoring are your customers. Maybe they're not even your customers now, but they're more likely to be your customers than some CISO who might be nearing retirement, just as an example. They are the CISOs of tomorrow, and they will remember you. And if you treat them nice now, hopefully they'll remember you later and be willing to take your calls. There is no such thing as a previously important person. There's no such thing as a fundamentally unimportant person. You are dealing with very important people from start to finish, no matter who those people are. So you better learn to treat those people with respect. Anyway, this is Ira Winkler for today's edition of Bite Me.
Okay, we're back. I hope you enjoyed the Ira's Bite Me segment. Ira's always got an interesting take on the world, especially around cybersecurity, and reminded us, and it's big.
Cybersecurity Awareness Month. How are you celebrating?
Absolutely. Do you know where your cyber is? Of course, Mike Vizard, you have a different take on it.
Well, I would just point out that, if I'm only aware of it for 1 month out of the year, that's 11 months where I'm kind of asleep at the wheel, right?
Some may disagree. Anyway, hey, gang, thank you. I had a ball doing this today. I love the topics. I love the discussion. Love the people on here. We hope you've enjoyed it out there. We've got a full Techstrong TV show going immediately following this. I think we have a Tech Field Day on live today. You might be able to catch with it. And more than that even. We'll be back tomorrow. I won't be here tomorrow. I will be out celebrating Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. So to all those who celebrate L'Shana Tova. And until next week then, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong. We're out of here.